Thank you for joining me as we take a look at Psalm 16. And I have a confession to make to you. I wonder if, like me, you sometimes find, particularly the first part of Psalms, quite heavy going in terms of there's a constant emphasis on trial and persecution and fear, because David is always aware of the relentless presence of his enemies and those who threaten his life, and is continually crying out to God for help and for deliverance, as well as expressing his confidence in God. There's nothing wrong with that. That's good and natural that we cry these things out to God. Indeed, it's a reflection of the fact that one of the largest groups of Psalms in the book of Psalms is what we call laments. Now, that doesn't mean that they're complaining. It simply means they are expressions from the heart of the believer of the pain we feel as we suffer the knocks and the hardships of life as a believer in a fallen and opposing world. But when we come to Psalm 16, which I call a psalm of contentment and confidence, it's a wonderful breath of fresh air. And we're actually going to take two looks at this psalm. We're going to look at the confidence today, and then our next little study we'll look at the so we're going to look at the contentment, and next time we're going to look at the confidence. I want you to begin by noticing how David speaks of and addresses his God. He has three names for him. He says in verse 1, "Preserve me, O God, for in you I take refuge. I say to the Lord, you are my Lord." Now that first name, God, is the word El, which speaks about the power and the might, the strength of God. Then he says, "I say to the Lord," all in uppercase, which means this is the English translation of the word Yahweh, or sometimes in English Jehovah. This is the covenant, relational, intimate, personal name by which God made himself known to Moses and of course to us as believers. But thirdly, he speaks of him, he says, "You are my Lord," lowercase Lord, which is the English translation of the Hebrew word Adonai. And that speaks about being Lord and Master in that sense. So here's a wonderful, comprehensive description of David's view of God and his relationship to him. His God is the strong and mighty God. His God is the personal and relational God. His God is his Lord and Master. And because he's committed everything to this God, because this is his God, he can also say, "I have no good apart from you." Everything David has in his life that is good has come from God, and he's freely acknowledging that. I have no good apart from you. There's nothing out there that's better than what I have in my relationship with you. Remember, the Bible says, no good gift will he withhold from his child. I wonder if you've got that confidence this morning. You are all my good. I have no good apart from you. Secondly, I want you to notice the choice that David makes in terms of the company that he keeps and prefers. He wants to distance himself from the wicked and the ungodly. Verse 4, those who run after, literally those who woo other gods. I'm not even going to take their names on my lips. But the saints in the land, they are the excellent ones. That's where his heart connects. That's with whom he identifies. They are the glorious ones, in whom is all my delight. That's a mark of grace, friend. That you see a believer and your heart bonds with them. It's a proof that you truly are a child of God. And they may be despised and rejected and ridiculed by the world, but you feel a bond and a connection with them because actually that person is your brother or your sister. And there's something wrong with the believer who prefers the company of the ungodly than the company of the godly. And then thirdly, I want you to notice David's deep contentment in God. The Lord, verse 5, is my chosen portion and my cup. Verse 6, the lines have fallen for me in pleasant places. The language of that second expression goes back partly to the apportioning of the land of the tribes of Israel where they moved into the promised land, but also to the idea of when you owned a field or bought a field, it wasn't marked off by walls or whatever else that we might be familiar with today. It was lined off. Various markers were used to distinguish one field from the next, and it was given to you. And the psalmist is saying here, my life is good. God has blessed me. The lines have fallen for me in pleasant places. This is David. This is the same David we talked about earlier, who's getting chased and threatened and ridiculed and rejected by his own family. And yet in spite of all that, over all that, he's able to say, the lines have fallen for me in pleasant places. There's a mark of grace. Always seeing the good things in life and recognizing that those good things have come from God. And it's because he says in verse 8, I've set the Lord always before me. Is the Lord always before you? In your thoughts? In your plans? David says, that's the secret of my contentment. I put my trust in God. He is my refuge, and I've always set him before me. And therefore, I can say, the lines have fallen for me in pleasant place. I trust you are aware of God's goodness to you in whatever circumstance you're facing today. Please join me next time as we look at the great note of confidence with which this amazing psalm finishes. Until then, the Lord bless you.